record. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ramona Speaks the Other Truth on Hoodoo Monday for the month of June. And of course, my distinguished guest, Catherine Yronwode, and I will be discussing Juneteenth and whatever else comes to mind. So, hello, Catherine.
Hello, Ramona. It's always wonderful to be a guest on your show. And
Aw,
even though we're a little late for Juneteenth by a day or two, I think it's time to catch people up on the subject.
okay.
There's a lot of people. I'm amazed when announcements that it was made a federal holiday went out. I had people that I was seeing on Facebook. Now, I can't call them my close friends, but I was surprised to see posts from people who were my quote Facebook friends, unquote, saying they'd never heard of Juneteenth.
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
like, I heard of it 3 days ago. And I'm like, really?
Actually, when I've heard of it, but I never knew it growing up
Mm-hmm.
because I was a California girl.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad is from Texas, my stepfather. He's from Texas. And
Well, you see, now
so,
that's funny because I always associated Juneteenth with Lake Merritt and Oakland, California.
yeah, but at 10 and 15, I didn't really understand, not until about my senior year did I understand, because there was so much other stuff going on, like the Black Panthers and Martin Luther King getting assassinated, and you can go before that, the bombing of the church, all of that.
Yes.
And
Well, you're right. It certainly did not appear during our childhoods and teen years, but
right.
I do remember when it started to become a thing. Now, I was surprised. I mean, I knew it was from Texas, and in the Bay Area where we grew up, there were an awful lot of people who had come from Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi.
Yeah. Now, my
And
granddaddy, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
was saying the Louisiana contingent brought all of the Zydeco music, and the Texas contingent brought Juneteenth.
Right. Right. And my granddaddies, they would talk about it on uh, a Sunday close to the date, and they called it Jubilee Day.
Right. That's right.
And so I knew what Jubilee Day was, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't equate the two
Yes,
together.
but you're right. You have a very good memory, and that's my memory too, that it was Jubilee Day, and then suddenly it was Juneteenth, but it was the same day. It was the same thing.
Right.
And I know somebody's going to ask, so what did the people from Mississippi bring? Because I mean, they brought the hoodoo. They brought the hoodoo. But yeah, Jubilee Day, that's right. And it's interesting to me that I didn't realize while all of this was going on in the Bay Area that it was also being talked about. Of course, I knew it was being talked about in Texas, but that there were other people who had carried it as a tradition farther
Right.
afield, up to Detroit and out, to the East Coast. And
Right.
so it became nationwide. And there were people who were actively campaigning for this for years, and
For years.
all power to them. They stuck with it. They did it. And last year, they almost made it. This year, it's in. And I am
Yes.
so happy with that. And
Yes.
I'll tell you why I'm happy with it. And I know this may sound strange. There are days that we celebrate, Martin Luther King's birthday, Abraham Lincoln's birthday, George Washington's birthday, whatever it's going to be, somebody's birthday. And there are days that we celebrate these people, but then other people come out with these tell-alls and, oh, well, so-and-so wasn't a perfect man. Why do we celebrate his birthday? And I kind of go with that old Bible thing, put not your trust in the works of man. And I would rather celebrate a day that had a meaning. Now, there are days that celebrate battles,
Yeah.
the 4th of July, the flag was still there, all that stuff, Declaration of Independence, wars, Memorial Day, it's about wars. Juneteenth is a holiday that no one can take exception to. It's a holiday about freedom. Now,
Yeah.
it does contain within it the idea that freedom was denied, that freedom was kept from people. But in the end, it shows you will get what you want if you persist. And the way that people persisted to get that made a federal holiday shows the same persistence. And I look at that and I go, that to me is a holiday that no one can take away from. It's no one person who might have had a bad moment that got later put out in broadcast. It's no battle where people say, well, what about those who died? It's just freedom. It's just a beautiful holiday. And I am so, so happy. I would rather celebrate that than the 4th of July, Columbus Day, any of those.
Yeah, yeah, because that's the one that I can identify with.
Yeah.
And that and January 1st has
Yes.
always been, whenever I start a job or school or anything, don't expect me to work on January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it the start of a new year, but it's also the date that the proclamation
Mm-hmm.
was issued in
That's right.
1863.
That's right. That's
And
right.
I think my ancestors speak through me, or, you know, because that day, more so than any other holiday, has been really personal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But for those who don't know what Juneteenth is, it's an African American culture holiday. Of course, now it's nationwide, and it originated in Galveston, Texas. And it has been celebrated annually on June 19th in various parts of the country. And I would say various parts of the country because there are 4 Hawaii, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana that don't acknowledge it. I'm not sure the reason why. Perhaps they weren't part of the union then. Um, but it would seem to me that since North and South Dakota are full of Native Americans, and Hawaii has been susceptible to a sort of genocide in their countries, that they would be a part of the celebration because there's very few original Hawaiian indigenous people left. And um, I don't understand the pushback on it, but I guess they have their reasons. But anyway, it started in Galveston when President Lincoln had to send Union soldiers down to actually make sure throughout the state of Texas that the slaves actually were given their freedom papers, because for 2 years Texas had not notified their slaves that they were now free. And in fact, there were people that traveled from the north to Texas bringing their slaves with them, both white and black, indentured and um, enslaved people, to Texas, where they were allowed to keep them after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. Did you know that?
Yep. That is truth. And it's the kind of truth that hurts when you hear about it. How could people be so bad? How could people be so cruel? How could people be so deliberately cruel that to keep enslaved and indentured people was so important that they'd pick up stakes and move to Texas so
Yeah.
they could keep those people enslaved. And
Yeah.
but we know, I mean, when we look back at the history of humanity, going back to Cain and Abel, it's all a mix of good and bad. And Juneteenth is the end of some bad. The
Yeah.
fact that there was bad goes without saying.
Yeah.
I look at it as Juneteenth is like the liberation of the concentration camps in Germany.
Yeah.
Juneteenth is like the signing of an armistice after the end of a war. It's a moment where good triumphs, but the bad always plots again.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a few states that won't recognize Juneteenth. They will. We'll keep at them. We're not going to
Yeah.
let up. We're just going to keep at them. We're going to say, look, we're having fun. We're out
Yeah.
here barbecuing and having fun. Why don't you join us? It's like the pride parades. It's like so many things that have been added that are just good. A celebration is always good. And if someone doesn't want to join in the celebration, they're the loser, because the
Yeah.
celebration has happened. It's going on. They'll join us soon in this happy band, But
Yeah. And it is a celebration because the last of the enslaved was free. It took a military force,
yes,
but
yes.
they were technically freed
Well,
slaves.
that's what they say. Keep on fighting for victory. Don't. And Juneteenth, one of the most important things about it is the fact that it has such great meaning in the African American community.
Yes.
One of the widest important things, not most important, but the most widely important, is that it tells people of all types, no matter where they come from, no matter what their struggle is, don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
It'll take time, but goodness can win. You can have what you hope for. You need allies. Remember, it took those soldiers to come in. We can all put shame on Texas forever. That's not what this is about.
Right.
This was putting a little bit of thank you on those Union troops who went in and said, all right, even if we got to fight, we're going to get this thing done. And they did.
Yeah.
And so always look to your allies, look to people who will help. And remember, strength united is stronger. That's what Juneteenth is for people who are white, Jewish, Asian, indigenous, Middle Eastern, whatever. Juneteenth is for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And the celebrations can go back to 1866,
That's right.
which first involved the church-centered community gatherings in Texas. And then
Mm-hmm.
it spread across the South and became more commercialized decades later, in the 20s and 30s, often centering on food festivals and
Mm-hmm.
things. And then participants in like the Great Migration out of the South carried their celebrations to other parts of the country. And during the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s, these celebrations were eclipsed by the nonviolent determination to achieve civil rights.
Right. That's right.
And it started growing bigger and bigger in popularity in the 70s, with a focus on African American freedom and African American arts.
Mm-hmm.
And so, beginning with Texas, by proclamation in 1938 and by legislation in 1979, 49 US states and the District of Columbia had formally recognized the holiday in various ways. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was determination. But what I feel is I feel that it's just is so sad
It is.
that it takes all of this for people to say, and it's still like pulling teeth a lot of times.
Well, you know, I made an analogy, as you know, and some of your listeners know, I'm Jewish, and a, a mix of Ashkenazi Jewish, Sephardic Jewish, and a little bit of North African, Berber, and Turkish, and God knows, I'm just a mess. But anyway, and a little bit of Portuguese or whatever I all in.
Me too.
But but what? So from my point of view, I mentioned something, the liberation of the concentration camps.
Yeah.
Now, and I see an analogy to that, because that was something my family lived through. My mother was a refugee who escaped from Hitler's Germany. But you talk about pulling teeth. There are still walking around all forms of social media. There are Holocaust deniers,
Yeah.
and I can't believe it. It hurts. I just get a pain in my stomach. I really, it hurts my heart. It hurts my midsection. I just feel like, how could they? How could they? Why would they be Holocaust deniers? But the same is true, and I know you must feel this. There are slavery deniers. There are
Yeah.
slavery deniers who say slavery wasn't bad, slavery wasn't slavery. The Confederate secession from the Union was not about slavery. It was just about self-determination. Blah, 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 blah. There's some lady right now who's been in Congress and saying, well, Hitler wouldn't have been so bad if he'd only stayed in Germany. It was when he invaded the Sudetenland that he violated international conventions, right? Oh, well, he could kill all the Jews he wanted in Germany. It wouldn't have mattered. I look at this deniers. We're just going to call them, they're deniers of oppression. They're deniers of cruelty. And they get off somehow on denying it. And you just have to stand there and I don't get it. I don't get it. But you have to stand there and face them down. You just have to say, no, slavery happened and we're celebrating. It's sad, but we're celebrating the end of it, even though it took this extra measure. Because I'm telling you about the concentration camp. I'm going to just say why I see the similarity. The war ended in Europe, but there were still people put on death marches. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There were still people, those Nazi thugs and cowards, they fled the concentration camps when the war was ended and they had to surrender. They just left the people locked up to starve. There was no way for them to get out. So it took weeks in some cases for troops to come in and free them. So it's the same thing. It's that moment between the defeat of the enemy and the liberation of the oppressed ones that is so torturing. And I can feel it with Juneteenth. There's a lot of anger bound up in that moment. Like, why did it take so long? But on the other hand, it's done. It's good. And you mentioned something about celebration of food and family. I'm going to say something about that too. Back in the day, when I was young, a lot of the people in the Bay Area who were Black, who had come from the South, had family reunions. These families had come through the Great Northern Migration. They had scattered around. They were working in the shipyards, primarily in the Bay Area. And when I was very young, and I'm a little older than you. And a lot of people would go back to their hometowns for family reunions and go back to Texas for the family reunion every year. And but as time went on, and there were more grandchildren and more great grandchildren, and the old folks that died back in Texas or back in Louisiana, sometimes they would bring performers or entertainers out. They'd come out from Louisiana and put on a little thing. But Juneteenth became kind of the old home week, but without having to go back to Texas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so there was Texas style barbecue and things like that were available. So it became a kind of a open to anyone. And that's when I entered into Juneteenth as a person who goes, Texas barbecue, how is it different from Kansas City barbecue? And so my first exposure to Juneteenth was as a food festival that was open to everybody. And that was a good thing. I mean, it wasn't I didn't have to be Black. I didn't have to be from Texas to love Juneteenth.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's something that you know that they actually celebrate it in Mexico,
No, I
that
didn't.
it is celebrated by the Moscogos, descendants of the Black Seminoles, who
Wow.
escaped from slavery in 1852 and settled into Coahuila, Mexico.
Wow. I had
Yeah,
no idea. I
yeah,
had no idea.
yeah.
Well, I am very pleased to see that we've gotten as far as we've gotten. There's always, two steps forward, one step
And
back.
it's more like one step forward and two steps back.
Well, right now,
It seems because
take our
every,
victory, take our victory when we can.
it's just that I feel that it's like there's this shadow people lurking in the shadows,
Hmm.
trying to bring back those not wanting to let go.
That's right.
And, just the thought of enslaving any human being to me is just so grotesque
Yes.
and permeates throughout my soul. Like
Hmm.
it's such an evil. And not only that, but compared to slavery around the world that has existed, these people were like the Nazis. Well, I
That's
should say the Nazis took
we're like.
after them
That's right. That's right.
because I did a eugenics topic, and a lot of people didn't know that the thought of a gas chamber originated here. They, our government was actually contemplating that to get rid of those that were not into that perfection that these eugenic people felt, the mentally disabled,
Right.
uh
Oh
the
yeah.
short, the damaged, whatever. And they were going to gas them. That was one of the solutions.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And this
Well,
was in the 30s.
yeah, that's right.
So they just cannot let go. I, I, I don't understand. I just,
Neither.
how do you want to have human suffering continue? Aren't you human, or are you?
Well,
Maybe.
that's a good question. Are they human? You know, I look at this sometimes. I think of it as what is causes people to do this. I'm going to tell a story. I didn't think at the beginning of this I was going to tell the story, but I am going to tell it. I collect restaurant ware. Okay, so restaurant ware is heavy duty Chinaware that's used in restaurants.
Mhm.
But, and a lot of times it's just plain. But going back in the day and going back to the 1880s, restaurants would commission the Chinaware to have the name of the restaurant. And
Yeah.
the Chinaware company would just put the name on it, do little, glaze it under a decal. And many of these are very beautiful. They would hire artists to letter them, and it would be beautiful lettering. And of course, they're limited. You don't know how many there would be, but any restaurant might only have 500 or 600 pieces restaurantware with their name on it. And eventually, the restaurant closes. It goes to the Goodwill. It gets collected. And I'm a collector of restaurantware that has beautiful lettering on it, and it's just a hobby. I have hundreds of pieces. Okay, so that's my background. Of course, once people collect things, there's other people who collect it, and then they put together groups on Facebook, right?
Mhm.
So there are several, I know of 3, and there probably are 4 or 5 restaurantware collector groups on Facebook. They're open to the public. You just apply to join. I belong to all of them. Well, on one of them, a woman who is a very well-respected restaurantware collector, she specializes in the same thing I do, which is restaurantware, not with a pattern on it, but with names and pictures of the
Oh,
of the
wow.
places. Gorgeous, it might be a hotel, it might be whatever. Um, on Juneteenth, now, Okay. On Juneteenth, this woman put up a picture of a plate of a chicken restaurant called Topsy's. And Topsy's, named after Topsy and Uncle Tom's Cabin, was
Ah,
a picture, a very derogatory picture. And I'm not talking just a coon picture. This was almost monstrous looking
yeah,
of this young girl. It was horrifying. And she
yeah,
did it on Juneteenth. And her post, her words were politically incorrect, I know, but anyways, that was her post. And there's this picture, right? Well, I'm glad to say a few people pushed back and said, "What you doing? What you doing?" But the administrator of the group said, "Well, it's history. You can't deny that it's history." And that this broke out. I mean, there was, a lot of
wow,
posts. It just went into one of those post storms, everyone screaming and yelling. And finally, there was me and one other person, and both of us said, donate that plate to the Jim Crow Museum. Now, y'all should know about the Jim Crow Museum at
mm,
Ferris University. Great place. Do a
mhm,
show on them. Get them on. They're fabulous. Donate it to the Jim Crow Museum. Don't be posting it. Other people say, "Well, I'm not offended." Well, interestingly enough, all the people who were not offended were white.
of
But
course,
some of the people who were offended were fair-skinned, and some were Jewish. And in fact, I'd say that the Jewish people were very offended. One person said, "What, plates from Auschwitz next?" Which is where
yeah,
Jews always go to, right?
right.
But what I said was, all right, why? Why post this on Juneteenth? What was your point? You can post a 5-cent hamburger a cup, and you can post a little butter pat from a fabulous hotel in New York City on any day. But why did you post Topsy's chicken on Juneteenth? What was your point, lady? Well, I woke up the next morning, June 20th, and the whole thing was gone. The whole thread had been taken down as if it had never happened. But I learned something. They will, and I'm not going to call this lady's name, but I will never forget her name. They will use any excuse they can to make people feel bad, to hurt people, to put people down. There was in a freaking restaurant where collectors hobby group of old middle-aged ladies, right? They're going to do that on Juneteenth. So we have not ended the battle yet. We're
Oh
still out.
no,
We're still out here on the barricades, but it's down to these little niggly little things. I mean, what the heck was that about? But there it
yeah.
was. She just had
It's
to
like
do it.
evil intent,
Evil intent. That's right.
you know,
Evil
it's
intent.
it's like, for so long, people in this country had free labor,
That's right. Oh, you said it. That's it.
and it made them wealthy,
That's right.
and it was taken away.
That's right. I'm going to make another parallel to Jews, and I know I don't want to sound like an old broken record here, but the equivalent in Europe was not that Jews were kept enslaved who gave free labor. Jews had to pay a special tax. I don't know if you all know about that. Going back to the Middle Ages,
That's right, they did.
they had to pay a tax to
That's
live in
right.
the town. And my great-great-grandfather wanted to live in the town of Nuremberg. No Jew had been allowed to live in the town of Nuremberg, Germany, since the 1350. And in 1850, he said he wanted to come with, and they said, well, all right, you have to put up a bond. And
Yeah.
he had to put up a bond, would be equivalent now to about $1 billion. He got 6 families together. They had to put up that money. They never saw that money again in order to be able to stay inside of Nuremberg after sundown. Now, you know what a sundown town is.
Right.
That's what Nuremberg was, a sundown.
Yeah.
So the same thing applied. It's extortion. It's extortion of labor, extortion of resources, extortion of money, extortion of caloric energy from an oppressed people. And they are so used to it. They are so used to it. Now, I'm not going to say I hate on them. Not every person who descends from those people is evil. Many of them understand what happened, but they all ought to know that the money that they have came from those sources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And don't want to give it back. Don't want to give it up. Don't want to atone, don't want to, none of that. And
Yes.
this is why I really, because remember we was talking about topics on shows, from generational curses.
Mhm.
Because it's just like something keeps just passing down,
That's right.
generation after generation. How do you pass down hatred? Even today, 1866 to 2021, and here they are still underhandedly trying to turn back
Mhm.
time. And I say, the conservative, I understand now, conservative means let's conserve our way of life.
Right.
And it seems like that is their main agenda, not to, but is this dawns on me because the people who fight it the most are them. Who's
Mhm.
trying to voter suppress?
Right.
Who's trying to pretend like racism doesn't exist in this country? Who
Right.
is it that has a problem with the truth being taught in school?
That's right. I mean, I believe
Their
me, I
truth has
hear
been
it.
taught.
I hear it. I hear what you're saying. And
Now it's
I
time
want
for,
to say, I want to say another thing. There's more than one way to get to a good solution. And I know this is going to sound way off. You can go up against them. You can shame them. You can confront them. You can whatever. You can talk to them. You can reason with them.
and it
But there's
doesn't do any
another
good.
way. There's a confrontation, and then there's conversion or luring people.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk against, when I was a kid, there were a lot of migrant workers who came from Mexico, and they had bad names for them. You know what I'm talking about? They had all kinds of put down
Always,
names that they called them, right? And
always.
and it was considered to be like just horrible. Well, somewhere people got the idea that Mexican beer was pretty good. And the next thing, there came this idea that we could have free beer at a restaurant on Cinco de Mayo. And everyone is like, there were all these white people, I don't want to celebrate Cinco de Mayo, it's not my holiday. We're Americans, but they do now because they get the beer, they get the fun, they get the party, they get the tacos. So one way to win over people for Juneteenth, more good Texas barbecue. And I know it sounds trivial, but if people can come and have fun, they will like it. They don't have to feel, oh, my grandfather kept slaves and I'm a bad person. My great grandfather, now my great 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 grandfather. I mean, I'm old enough to know that I knew people whose grandfathers had been slaves and kept slaves. But the idea is be welcoming, be friendly. We're out here having fun. Look at Pride Day. Look, it started off with the Stonewall riots, and now
Yeah.
it's Pride, and it's parties, and everybody goes. So let's declare Juneteenth the best party. And there's a lot of, that's why I said a day, Martin Luther King Day. It's complicated. This is a man, he had a life, he was assassinated. There's a lot of feeling there, a lot of unresolved feeling. But Juneteenth, let's just say, if we make it a party, those white people, they'll come along. They'll like it after a while. Give them 10 years, okay? Let's just check back in with each other in 10 years. Juneteenth is going to be the best part. And it'll help, because when you give people something fun, they will accept it and enjoy it, where they don't have to look back on. They'll say, well, all the bad times is over, and then they will be happy. So this is why the fight for Juneteenth means so much to me, because it's a fight to put a happy holiday onto the calendar.
Yeah.
And that is good. That is what's really, really good. Now we got to get rid of Columbus Day. We got to just get rid of that thing.
I
And
mean, do
that's
they
got to
still
be,
celebrate that?
oh yeah, there are people still out there. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. But we got to get rid of that. And we got to have, Navajo fry bread festivals. You know what I'm saying? We got to have
Yeah.
Indigenous People Day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I know it sounds just as stupid as can be, but when you give people a party with some good food and maybe a little bit of something nice to drink on the side, they're happy. And we can all be diverse and we can all be friends if we had a holiday I used to want to have a holiday every day of the year. I thought every day must have a holiday, not a solemn commemoration day and not a day of national mourning and all that, but no,
Mhm.
a holiday every day. And we could say today is, whatever, the feast of whatever.
Yeah.
That would be nice. That would be
Yeah.
nice. Then we know we're going to live in peace. So always, my advice always is fight, fight, fight for right. But once you've got just even a little toehold, throw a party, right? Throw a party and say, hey, you're all invited. Come on out. You're all invited. Let's have some good times. And that will allow them to get off of their bad mood,
Yeah.
And some people say, well, I don't want to give them food. I don't want to be here. They were bad to us. I'm going to one more time speak about Jews. So we have a little party we hold every year. It's called Passover Pesach. And
Yeah.
it's a holiday, but we hold it in our homes. It's not,
Right.
not held at the synagogue or anything like that. And it's a very long tradition of hundreds of years to invite non-Jews to come to them and teach them our funny little ways and let them eat our funny little food, and and people hold public Passovers. President Obama had a Passover in the White House. I was so impressed. I thought, what a guy that was. So that's an idea that's been around. Let's make Juneteenth be wonderful. Let's get a big delegation to go to South Dakota and North Dakota and just get out in the public park and just let's have Juneteenth there. The hell with them. They're going to want to come out and have fun anyway. Let's have some music. Let's have some food. And the way to win them over is with love. They'll come around. Hawaii, they'll come around with love. We're just going to keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep the faith.
Keep the faith. That's right.
Keep the faith.
Keep the faith. And
we've kept it, but we've kept it this long.
That's right. Well, it's happening, and the tipping point has been reached. And I have to say, like I said, that lady who posted that restaurant where that was like that was the last, she was the last holdout on the island as far as I was concerned. You know what I'm saying? We had to take that down, take it down, and hope for goodness. Juneteenth means so much to me. It brings back my childhood, all of the learning that I had, given to me by the Black community in the East Bay in particular, South Bay, East Bay, even in San Francisco. I didn't hang out there much. I was born in San Francisco, but I mostly grew up in the East Bay. All of that learning that came to me is all encoded in my mind in Juneteenth.
Yeah.
And knowing what people had gone through and what their parents had gone through and how they'd overcome and how they'd come out and had good lives for themselves in California, comparatively speaking. Yeah. They didn't have the inherited wealth, that was an obvious difference. But building for themselves. And of course, there's been pushback. I know that it's not. We're not in the land of sunshine and roses yet.
No, I always had hope because I saw my grandfather was well into his 90s, born in 1894.
Mm-hmm.
He was the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him pass away without ever seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like I may pass away without ever seeing it. So that would make about 8 generations
Mm-hmm.
that have lived in this country and just never got to the point where I tell you, I went to Paris. Well, Europe was wonderful for me when I went in the 70s. And for the first time in my life, I was just an American.
Mm-hmm.
They referred to me, my husband told me later when I had to leave suddenly from Rome, we were living in Rome. He says, everybody kept asking, where's that tall, proud American girl?
Huh.
I had to leave this country to go somewhere in the 1970s, end of the 70s, to know what it feels like just to be an American.
That's that's sad. It is sad.
It's sad. And even today, we're still being pushed back from being Americans because technically, when they say we Americans, they're not talking about people of color.
No, they're not. You're right.
And yet, the people of color, especially Black people, are more American than any of them. And that is the sad thing. I try not to dwell on it, but lately it's just like every time you turn around, you see these Marjorie Taylor Greens or whatever her name
That's
is, and
yeah.
all these other people that's sitting up in that Game of Thrones making same the same decisions they were making back in 1799.
Right. That's right.
And that is what is sad.
And the really sad thing is they do it and it works. They get followers. They do it and people come up out of nowhere. Oh yeah, that's the message I was waiting for, the message of hate. I want to do that too. It's it's very, very discouraging. I
Passed
don't
down through generations. I'm
yeah.
telling you, there's something about that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because none of them were alive then either,
That's right.
but they carry the same attitudes and thoughts that they did in 1700.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I really want to look into this generational thing because damn, what does it take? You can see every day. I mean, wow, what it makes me, I don't know. I, 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 I think it would take aliens from outer space to come down and attack this country
And that's a
for
good
people
theory.
to, to actually accept each other as Americans because that's what we'll be, Earth people.
That's right. That's
I
right.
think that's what it would take.
That's true. There's an old science fiction story about that. I read as a child about a couple of scientists who get together and make a fake alien attack to get people to stop fighting on Earth and to get to be friends. That story, I read that, oh my gosh, back in the 1960s. It impressed me so much. But you hit on the same idea. Yes, if aliens attack, um, well, you would have thought a pandemic would have helped, wouldn't you? You would have thought everybody's got this no, that just
No.
turned people against each other for other reasons.
Yeah,
They say
because we had somebody sitting up there telling them it wasn't real.
That's right. And it turned people against young people against old people. Well, we
Yeah,
don't care. Just let the old people die. You're kidding.
that's
Really?
what our
That-
lieutenant governor of the state of Texas said.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And so, yeah, even a pandemic did not cause, and people say, oh, well, now it's happening over in India. It's not my problem anymore.
They're,
No, it's still the world's problem. And
yeah,
compassion is treated as if it were a scarce resource.
of
And
course.
but yet compassion, some people are born with it and some people learn it. Many people, I'm going to tell you my little theory on this. I believe that some children are at a moment when they could be tender, are mocked or ridiculed for being tender. They feel sorry. Maybe they saw a dead butterfly. They went, oh, and
Yeah,
then their parent or their little school
yeah,
friend say, no, it's just a dead bug. Squish,
yeah,
squish, squish. And
yeah,
they learn to not be compassionate.
yeah,
And it starts with little things like that. Picking up the puppy and throwing it. Little kids have killed puppies that way. And then everyone goes, well, he didn't know, but he did. They do. And by the time they get into the military, they join. Now, it used to be they would draft people and people would protest. I don't like the military. I don't want to do this. And they'd even go to jail rather than go to the military. Well, now it's all in inducements and incitements and luring. Come and join the military. We'll give you a college education and we'll give you a good job in law enforcement afterwards. And these people have all their compassion beaten out of them, laughed out of them, joked out of them. They end up with PTSD. And we have created a nation of people who are struggling with mental health issues. And the other thing is this damn opioid pain prescription medicine thing that has just taken over America. People
hmm
are, taking all of these pain pills that were prescribed supposedly legitimately. And we have turned into a nation of emotional cripples.
yeah,
No compassion. And when we have any feelings, take a pain pill, take a pill, take an upper, take a downer, take a psychotropic this, take a psychiatric drug. And people are not learning how to deal with reality, with emotions, with compassion. So I look at it and I just go, this is pretty hopeless. And like you, and I feel like, well, I really thought it was going to get itself worked out, but
I
no,
did.
it's not going to get itself worked out. This is going to be, we lived through a time that was pretty good, but then it kind of went bad. And
Yeah,
I look back at things like the collapse of the Roman Empire or, the overthrow of the Irish kings or whatever, some little regional thing that looked like, what happened, the downfall of the Song dynasty in China. These things, you go, how did that happen?
yeah.
Why did Timbuktu fall? Who knows? Well, something, there's always something. I don't think that we're making much progress here. We have
No,
started to globalize, but if it all becomes an autocracy, if it all becomes a non-democratic system, these voting rights restrictions, I couldn't believe that's happening, given people went
I
out there
know.
and died for voting rights.
Exactly.
I,
That's what I've said, they a different spin. And it's funny, because what you just said, I woke up this morning. No, I was right before I went to sleep and I was, after prayer and I was thinking, no wonder people are turning away from the Christian faith and stuff and looking for other things because you're telling the people that God is love, Christ is love,
mm-hmm,
that he cares and protects the children and he's spreading that and that this is our father and he answers your every need. Well, the basic need that the average human being and what screws them up as adults is the lack of love
that's right.
that they receive, even going as far as an infant. And it
Mm-hmm.
seems to me, as I questioned, I said, God, if you're love, and that is your thing, and you love humanity. Why is it that you never put your essence where it's needed at a time when it's needed, when these children are coming up that are being abused, ignored, a lack of love? Every person, all they want is to be loved
That's right.
by someone. The easiest thing to do, yet it's so hard. And where's the intervention? Because if you look at it, the opposite of love is hate.
Hmm.
And all these people that are embracing hate were children. Somewhere along the line, they didn't feel love.
That's right. But
And
there's so many of them. There's so
so
many of them.
many.
That's right.
I was hopeful in the 60s and 70s.
Hmm.
Oh my God, I thought this is it.
Hmm.
And it's like they sent a wave through to wash anybody who was feeling that way out.
Can I just say something here? Because, like I said,
Yeah,
we're about the same age, and I'm gonna say, when I saw, and I'm gonna just go right to popular culture, not any individual subculture, not any
right.
minority group, the major national television, when Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and Marlo Thomas came out with these, and these things were broadcast everywhere. Children were raised free to be you and me. Children were raised with, being friendly. Children were raised with diversity. It was so important in the 70s, as the children of the 60s had their own children. They wanted their children to have a safe, loving way to be raised. They basically took over national television. It was fantastic, and
Mm-hmm,
also worked education into it. I'm not
mm-hmm.
saying that it was the golden age of TV, but it was something that was important.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened? I look at it, and I'm going to say the forces of darkness. I'm going to call them that. I used to call them the forces of Mordor, just to be a little poetic about it. Lord of Rings like.
Yeah.
They introduced new, worse drugs, cocaine,
Yes. Chemicals.
chemical drugs. And now I used to listen to old music, and there was a song, um, lots of songs about cocaine. Cocaine's for horses, not for men. They tell me it'll kill me. They won't say when. That's because cocaine used to be used to shoot up racehorses to make them run fast. It would kill them too,
Yeah.
And
Used to be in our Coca-Cola.
it used to be in Coca-Cola, right? So I knew well enough never to take cocaine because I listened to those old songs. Cocaine's for horses, not for men. But I lost a lot of my friends to that first wave of cocaine.
Yeah.
And I thought, now surely they've seen how bad this is. But that took out some of the brightest minds, some of the brightest people. They're gone.
Yeah.
Well, then they followed it up with a huge wave of heroin. All right. Then it goes to methamphetamines and it goes to fentanyl. I mean, it's like they will kill people en masse in order to get them out. And I'm saying, this is going to sound very conspiracy theory. It's being done on purpose.
Of
Don't,
course it is. But there's
don't,
nothing conspiracy theories about it. It's obvious. I mean, it's
right,
nothing you have to dig and find.
right. Well,
At the same
there's,
time they're saying more on drugs. They're down in the School of the Americas in South America,
right.
training soldiers and allowing cocaine to come over here.
That's right. The Iran-Contra scandal. See, nobody remembered that one. That's too old. But I remember it. I actually worked on a of trading cards. We put out trading cards. I ran Contra scandal trading cards. Me and my ex-husband in our old company, Eclipse. But yeah, there's a way to take out the best minds, and that is that
Exactly.
those people are exploratory, and you can give them deadly drugs. And
Yeah.
so Now everything people like make fun. They say, "Oh, okay, boomer." What's that all about? Who started that okay boomer meme? What was that about? Why? Why was that started? In order so that the things that people said about universal respect, emancipation, freedom to vote, freedom to be you and me, that those would be laughed at. They would be laughed at. And so they made okay boomer as this sort of joke on us, older folks. Well, we don't want what you got. We're going to go, well, if you got something better, bring it, because you don't. And right now, what I'm seeing is a lot of people nitpicking, people looking at the mote in somebody else's eye and forgetting the beam in their own eye. This is not the best time for unity. And when you talk about unity, people start picking it apart. Well, how can you be unified with so-and-so? You all are so different. We didn't used to say that. We'd look at our similarities and we'd go out and we'd walk together in the street and get what we want. And I know it's just, and you mentioned the Christian church, and the Christian church took a whole turn to I don't know what you want to call it, a turn toward, well, I'm going to call it a turn toward hell. And I'm going to anger a few Christians. The Christian church took a turn toward hell when they became so abstemious, so conservative, so hate-filled, so condemnatory, so against the teachings of Christ. I just don't want to even go into it, but you all know what I'm talking about. The evangelical movement, which destroyed the Christian church, is destroying the Christian church right now. And I say that as an ally from the Jewish standpoint. Just watch out. Watch out. The Christian church needs to come to a reckoning with God now. That's just, I'm sorry, I'm going to preach if I get started on that.
Well, I'm right there with you because, I ran down the evangelical history, and the leaders of the evangelical churches in the 1800s, early 1800s, started the first Ku Klux Klan.
That's right.
They didn't do it against the slaves. They did it against the Jews, the Italians, whoever was immigrating, because their whole purpose was to make this country a white Christian nation.
That's right. With slaves, a white Christian nation.
With the slaves. The slaves were already enslaved.
We were already there. That's what they were into. No, it's true. And so many things. I mean, I'm not going to say it's all Christian's fault. Let's just look at the Taliban, okay? Let's just look, a religious fanaticism, using religion as a mask for really what is autocracy, using religion as a mask for domination, control, ruination of freedom. That is the problem. It's not the religion's problem. It's the people who are using that religious mask. They also use political masks. They also use entertainment masks. They use all types of masks.
Of course.
So what you have to look for underneath it all is look for the dominators and avoid them if you can. Fight them if you have to. Convert them. Convert their children if you can to being compassionate and not dominators. It's all about, do you want to have a hierarchical civilization in which you have a shot at being at the top, even though everyone else suffers, but you will never get that shot at the top. Think about it. All those, what we used to call poor whites, and I know you know what I'm saying, poor whites who supported the establishment that oppressed blacks. Did they get anything? No, they had rotten teeth and had to get dentures. No, they just lived in a tumble-down shack with no running water. They were poor whites, but they would die on the hill of being better than black people because they believed they were part of the great chain of being, that they were going to, their children might someday go to the top. They never did. They never did. It's all a lie. The dominator culture is a lie. It has always been a lie. It will always be a lie. And the truth is, you just have to share and share alike. We're all at the table together. We have to share. That's it.
Exactly.
We have to share with the other species too. I'll go off a little bit on my side trip. We have to share other species. We can't just take all the food away from the raccoons and the deers and the grizzly bears. That's not fair either.
You know, and here's the thing, because when you think about the Christian faith and what you know of its history,
Mm-hmm.
people need to understand that the first printed Bible didn't happen until the 1400s, which was 1400 years
Mm-hmm.
after the birth of Christ.
That's right.
Now, you tell me, do you think that it took that long? And what has happened in between during that 1400 years of the stories and the things and putting it together, taking it out, you know, collecting
Oh,
these
yeah.
things?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, people, you know, listen and look, when you see the people that are up there trying to tell you how to get spiritual, not living a spiritual life,
That's right.
that's got to tell you something.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus said, seek and ye shall find, ask and it shall be answered, open, knock and it shall be open. What he's saying,
Mm-hmm.
he says,
Mm-hmm.
I am the light.
Mm-hmm.
Trust in no man, you
That's,
know,
that's right.
seek
Well,
and you
there,
shall find,
that's right. There's a,
love one another.
that's right. That's right. There's truth in that.
Simple.
And it's simple. It's very simple. And the thing is, if people would also just mind their own business
Mhm.
and not go into it about what other people do. Okay. So um, just as an example, I'll use it, we'll go back to Juneteenth. Just as an example, it's well known that the Black Christian churches retain African forms of praise and celebration. You know,
Mhm.
let's just
Mhm.
start with tambourine, but you know,
Mhm.
any of it.
Yeah.
So white people say, well, we can't have that in our denomination. We must have African Methodists because you can't be Methodists. So then there's the Episcopalians. Well, you can have African Episcopal. Then you come up with the AME church.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Well, there's the Black Baptists and the White Baptists. Why did
Mhm.
they do that? They did it in part because the white people didn't want to sit with their former slaves and or they didn't want to hear African melodic musical scales being sung. They didn't want to hear uh, what sometimes is called moaning, what sometimes is called whooping, what is sometimes is called African praise song. They didn't want that.
Mhm.
So when they do that, they say, well, you're not really the same. So this is a schism. This is the religion splits, right? Well, the
Yeah.
same happens in every religion. There's Islamic factions that I don't even know about, the Wahhabis versus the Sunnis versus the
Yeah.
Shia.
Yeah.
Same thing has happened in Judaism. There's the ultra Orthodox, the Hasidic, the Reform, the liberal, the conservative. They're all, it,
Hmm.
rather than focusing on what was the teaching, what was the celebration, what was the beauty of it, it's always that some little petty dictator, some little tin pot dictator says, I'm going to be the leader of this church, and this church is going to be different from that church, and we're going to have our little ways, and you're going to do what I say, or you're going to hell.
Yeah.
Right? And when
Yeah.
they do that, they get 400 followers, 4,000 followers, they get 4 million followers, and then they become a denomination, and then there's no going back. You
Mm.
know, are you in the churches of Christ? Are you in the churches of God in Christ? Or you were in the churches of God of Cleveland, Tennessee? Right?
Yeah.
They're all different. They're all fighting, and it's because some man or woman wanted to be a leader. Leader, put not your trust in the works of man. Put your trust in God. That's the answer to that one.
Yep. Yep. So what
Well,
we need to do
What we need to do is have more barbecues and less preaching.
and more dancing and art shows and
That's right.
oral histories.
Let's show
You
our
know,
beauty, you know. Let's show
but
our beauty and let's show our love.
you said something really interesting that gave me a flash.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about the baby boomer thing.
Mm-hmm.
See, we're dying off.
That's right.
We're the last ones that know exactly
Mm-hmm.
what this country went to turn it
That's right.
around. When we're gone, they can manipulate the minds
That's
because
right.
most of the kids, they don't read, they don't know. You know, people are too busy to explain it to them. You know, and then they have people out there trying to discredit you when you try to teach, like the elders we are.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But when we're gone, those kids don't have a strong mind and moral compass. It could easily sink back.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say that beware of words like fad. They'll tell
Mm,
you, oh, the hippies were a fad.
mm-mm,
Uh-uh. People give their
mm-mm.
lives to
They
and
sure did.
the word hippie was rejected by most, but we
Yeah,
didn't call ourselves hippies particularly. Um, there was a back to the land movement, and that was based on the idea of let's have a low impact life and let's not
right.
use plastic so much. Boy, that certainly got done away with. All of a sudden,
Peace
China,
and love movement.
yeah, peace and love. China flooded us with plastics, and nobody now they say, "Oh, you're just so screwy. What do you care about styrofoam?" I've always cared about styrofoam. Stop using styrofoam. But it just overwhelms you. Every package comes with styrofoam in it, and it was just a fad to talk against plastic. It's just fad to say that people are equal. It was just a fad. It was then they make fun of it. Oh, they were flower children. All that stuff. Um, yeah, we're going to go down in history as being something as trivial as the pre-Raphaelite movement in art. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, if we don't get our books out, the written word out.
Well, the written word is a good way, and also oral history, documentation of what we are, what we stand for. You know,
Pictures.
yeah, pictures. My parents uh, ran a bookstore when I was young, an antiquarian
Right.
bookstore, and my mother was really a student of history, and she always would say to me, read these books, not dry old textbooks on history, but read the history that someone wrote in their diary or the story they told about their lives. And I began to read and see, starting with American stories, because when I was a kid, when we were children, there were a lot of Westerns. It was always this thing about Westerns. They were all over TV. And she'd say, well, the West wasn't exactly like they telling you it was on TV. And so she'd get me more stories.
Yeah.
And I began to see that you could just open up a book and you could be like in a person's mind. Now, books are getting to be old fashioned, but not yet. They're not yet dead. They're all getting to be online. The old books are getting to be online. But at the end of it, pictures will help more.
Yeah.
Photos, colorizing. There are people who can no longer know how to parse or understand a black and white photo. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to them because they haven't seen enough black and white photos to understand. I can look at a black and white photo, go, that was red, that's blue. Your mind makes the leap because you know what you've seen enough black and white photos. So the
Right.
training to even see a black and white photo is disappearing. So colorizing those black and white photos, that's a service. But what has to happen is people who are younger, we have to take time to say to them, this is what is, this is what was. You're not the first person who's wondered about this. But I look at it now with all of this overpopulation, and it is overpopulation. You look at these cities, now that they have drones, and you see the drone footage, cities in China, it's acre after acre after acre of cubicles, just these buildings, these barracks-like buildings, people in these apartment buildings, just jam-packed together. they are being kept in cages, basically. They show up for work, they do their job to make more cages for more animals that are kept in
Hmm.
cages. That's civilization in some of these nations. And we are lucky here in America. We still have a lot of land, a lot. But you look in those inner cities, what happened to Black people? That Black people used to be called, he's so country. And now they say he's urban. What happened? Black people lost their land is what happened. And they're now in these little cages. Well, we have found out you can feed an animal. You can keep dogs in cages. You can keep foxes in cages and raise them for their fur, and you can keep people in cages and raise them for their ability to manipulate code in a computer. People are going to watch out, people. You're all going to end up in little cages, and it's happening right now. And, there's nothing so sad as the voluntary self-enslavement of a person.
Of that mind.
Of the mind. The mind is the first thing to be enslaved. And that when I see that happening to these young people now, I very much feel sad and sorry for them, because who knows where it's going to go, where it's going to end up. Are they just going to end up being little? Will it be better to have them be like a little brick of protoplasm? Will it be better to have them live in a test tube? Who knows where it's going to go?
I don't know, but I'm saddened for them.
Yeah. I know too.
Because they're not even taught to believe their eyes and what they see and hear.
No, it's right.
And if you can't trust your spirit, then you can't. Oh my God, what kind of life must you lead?
That's right. Well, it's very interesting now. On the hopeful side, because I never like to go too far down the rabbit hole of doom and gloom.
Yeah.
On the hopeful side, there has never been a time when we have been more able to see the lives of others. As a child, I read the National Geographic, and they would show these people, living in Liberia, or these people over here in Samoa, or these people over here in Frederick, Maryland, or wherever they were, and I go, wow, this is so cool. I'm going to go to Frederick, Maryland one of these days,
Right.
And now it's all right there. I can just dial up Frederick, Maryland. I can just go do a walking tour with Google Street View.
Right.
We have more capability. The good news is we have more capability to see and live with other people. The pandemic kind of pushed that into hyperdrive. Now people staying at home, they learned a lot about things like Skype, things like Zoom, things like, FaceTime that they had been resisting. Now they've got kind of getting it. I'm hoping that people who are aware will understand that they can live a low impact life, reduce their reproduction rate to a sane amount, let's hope, and make a beautiful world. They have to be able to do it, but it's going to take millions, billions of people to agree on that. Nothing ever happens till more than 50% agree on it. So we got, 7-some billion people here, going on 8 billion. I don't know. We're going to need at least 4 or 5 billion people to agree that we're going to have a beautiful world.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but it's just a number. When a certain number of people said, we don't want slavery in the United States, they won. When a certain number of people said, we don't want to fight the war in Vietnam, they won.
Yeah.
So form alliance, get together and get the majority. It's all about getting the majority. When you get 51%, at least in America, you win.
Yeah.
And so keep on fighting for victory.
Make people not afraid of their neighbor. Make people love their neighbor. To make people want to get to know their neighbor. To be able to look at their neighbor as they look at themselves. And it's got to start there. And I think it is working, because I felt hopeful when Trump was voted out.
Yes, me too.
Because that let me know Not everybody, you know, besides us is for all of that mess.
That's right.
And that was hopeful. That was hopeful. And if we can just keep educating people of where they've been to now and what the future could look like. I think that's a start, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to say one other little idea here, just throw it out. Maybe someone will pick it up. Don't be so critical along the way.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't meet you 100%, if they make a little misstep, if they say something that seems a little not quite kind,
right?
Don't go into that they are my enemy forever.
No.
Just make a note of it and work on that part, because we all live pretty long lives, and everybody can be educated, everybody can be trained, and those are two different things, and everybody can have a way forward. And so say you have a friend, and you know, they say something stupid. It might be sexist, it might be racist, it might be homophobic, it might be elitist, it may be history denying. Talk to them about it. Don't just say that person is evil, 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 because you just made yourself an enemy. And if they're not physically threatening you, then talk.
Yeah.
And see what you can do. Many a person has had their mind changed toward compassion, empathy, goodness, and charity just by meeting somebody and talking to them. Oh, I didn't know you felt that way about it. Oh my gosh. Right?
Yeah.
And so that puts the burden on the social justice warriors to drop the word warriors. Be social justice ambassadors. Be social justice inviters.
Right.
Be social justice hostesses.
Yeah. 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 Get everybody to know that we're all humans.
That's right.
We're one species.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What the world needs now is fewer warriors and more social justice.
Right. Right. A togetherness, a coming together.
That's right.
Understanding.
That's right.
Don't have to agree, but you can understand where that person is coming from.
That's right. And if you can't, you know, get fully 100% behind them, then mind your own business. Unless they, you know, I mean, mind your business is also good advice.
As Jesus said, shake the dust from your feet and keep it moving.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
Ramona, we're not going to solve the problems of the world.
No, we're not, but we're going to celebrate Juneteenth every year.
Juneteenth is definitely here to stay. Glory, hallelujah.
Yep.
Jubilee.
Yep.
It's the Jubilee. It's
the Jubilee.
It happened.
Yeah, like the Jubilees in the Old Testament.
In the Old Testament. Yep, that's right. It's been a long time, and I'm so glad. And there's going to be scoffers, and there's going to be mockers. Just let them get an invitation to that good Texas barbecue. They'll come around. They'll come around.
The Texas barbecue and that Louisiana gumbo.
That's right. They're gonna go, I like that. And they're gonna say, I like the people who made that. And they're gonna go, I like that a lot. And that's really how you win friends, not just with food, but with music, with art, with love. You don't win friends by making them feel bad. You win friends by being friendly.
Right.
So let's have Juneteenth be I mean, it's based on some tragedy. We know that. It's based on a whole hell
Yeah.
of a lot of tragedy. But
Yeah.
we look at it now and, you know, as the old song said, you know, we shall overcome.
Yeah.
We shall overcome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to move on. I have some oils to make. I'm,
Oh, okay. That
I
sounds
can't
good.
stay, I can't stay much longer.
Well,
I
I
have,
think it's about
I
time
make
to
oils
wrap
for
it
my
up.
little shop, you know, Lucky Mojo. And I've
Yeah.
got these pans of oil. My hands smell like myrrh because I started off on making myrrh before that we started the show. And I'm going to I have to go make some scented oils because they're waiting for me. We got to fill some orders.
All right then. Um, Now, when is your festival gonna
Oh,
be?
well, let's talk about that. All right. Well, give me a minute. That's good.
Okay.
The virtual Hoodoo Heritage Festival, which I believe is the 14th annual festival, is September 11th and 12th, 2021. Now,
Okay.
this festival, you call it my festival, but it's not, but I'll tell whose it is. The Association of Independent Spiritual Churches, the AISC, is a nonprofit organization that contains spiritual churches of all types. And they have a directory of readers and root workers that is called the Association of Independent Readers and Root Workers, or AIR, AIRO. And AIRR puts on this festival, AISC and AIRR put on the festival. They also have other things like the Crystal Silence League, which is a prayer chain. It's an online prayer chain, and people will pray for you. There's a pro bono fund where you can get free spiritual supplies that are donated and with instructions for use. So there's a lot of things that the AISC does, but the biggest thing they do is the yearly Hoodoo Heritage Festival. And this year, it's going to be virtual. Last year, it was virtual. And we're hoping maybe the year after it'll come back to being in person again.
Right.
And this is going to be 10 workshops over the course of 2 days, 5 workshops per day. And so these are recorded, and then there is live Q&A with the presenters, just like there would be in person, asking questions. But what's really cool, if you get your tickets now, and today is, I think, the last day of the early bird special, you get a discount. The discount continues at a lesser rate, and then eventually it gets up to what's called gate price. But right now we're still on the last day, the early bird special. And you will get a box. It's called the workshop box, but everyone calls it the goodie box. So this is like a priority mail box that will come with items to be done, because these are not just lectures, these are workshops. So for instance, I'm doing a workshop on sex magic. Well, I'm not going to give you any sex things, but I'm going to give you some sex magic things, right? Some stuff you can make and do.
Okay.
There's a workshop on how to use amulets, charms, and talismans. You will get in the box a whole lot of different little amulets, charms, and talismans. Plus, you'll get an entire 96-page book, part of your ticket price. In my Down Home Sex Magic, you get a 96-page book as part of your workshop. There's another workshop called Terrors of the Evil Eye Exposed. You'll get some evil eye charms and a book. So there's books that go with some of them. Some of them you'll get candles, like Lady Muse. You're going to get she's got so many things going on. Pendulums and bath products and you name it. There's another one Ms. Robin is going to be doing. And each of these workshops is taught by a person, or there's a panel, and they will teach you. One of the panel discussion this year is overcoming hardships. And Papa Newt will be involved, Mama E, Angela Marie Horner, and each of them will bring something, and they'll bring a spell, they'll bring something to the workshop box. You open up the box and there's your stuff. So it's just like being in person.
Wow.
And that is a wonderful yearly event. And I used to host them at my property here in Northern California. People would come a long way. But actually, once we went virtual, people have come from all around the world. So it
Wow.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you are under the sound of my voice, you could join this virtual Hoodoo Heritage Festival. It's on Zoom. There are chat rooms. There's a whole lot of, and PDFs. I forgot that. every one of these workshops comes with a minimum, either a entire book or a minimum of a 2-page typeset PDF of lecture notes already comes in with it when you get your ticket.
Excellent.
Yeah, so it's all there. Those pages, those PDF pages, eventually get collected into books, which are festival books. We did one called the Black Folder. We did one called the Red Folder. We're working on one.
Yeah, I have the red folder.
Yeah, and you'll see inside of it, there's all the lecture notes from all the past
Right.
events. Yeah, so that's what's going to be happening. Oh my gosh, I forgot another one. Evan Lionheart, the young up-and-coming astrologer, is giving me a workshop on astrology for root workers.
Oh.
Because there are a lot of people who mistakenly talk about history, mistakenly believe that Black people don't do astrology. Well, actually, Black people invented astrology, if you want to go back to that. But there's this idea that astrology is owned by white people. Not true, and has never been true. Don't listen to the lies that people tell to divide you.
Yeah.
So going back to people like E.P. Reed in the 1880s, he was doing astrology charts. He was an African-American man. So Evan, who is African-American, is teaching a class on root work and astrology. It's going to be a very interesting class. And with it, Deacon Millett is putting out a full color PDF Kindle type book.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And it's included with your ticket. I mean, you're not just buying a ticket to attend, you're getting all this stuff that's coming to you: courses, lecture notes, products in boxes. It's a real different kind of festival. It's really good. The book will eventually be sold, the astrology book and the evil eye book, the amulet book, and the sex magic book will all be eventually sold on Amazon. But why not get them with the party, get them all together.
Right.
So that was my slightly more than 3 minutes on that festival.
Well, send me a link.
I can tell you right now what it is. HoodooHeritageFestival.com.
Okay.
HoodooHeritageFestival.com. There it is. And we have the postcard. The image shows a astrology woman curled around in an astrology shirt. HoodooHeritageFestival.com.
Okay.
And you found it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So there you go.
September the 11th and the 12th.
September 11th and 12th. Now, you can sign up for it and get the box, and you can listen to those lectures at your own convenience. You don't have to be there, but the live chat will be happening live,
right,
while it's happening.
Right.
So it's a live chat. Each of the lectures is scheduled for 1 hour, so they're probably mostly 40-45 minutes and then 15 minutes of chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna post this on my page.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And there are the committee that's putting this on this year. As I said, I'm not on the committee. I'm just one of the presenters. The committee is Lady Muse and Robin, who's the one who founded the festival. She's someone from the East Bay too. And Lady Muse is in Southern California. And Deacon Millett, who's from Southern California. Well, he's from Texas actually, but he lived in Southern California and down in the desert. So there you go. There's the Hoodoo Heritage Festival.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I hope a lot of people come out. We can talk if you have me on again, we'll talk about it again. I'm working on my books. I got to get them all out in print. Yeah. I also, if you want to, I do have a Patreon. It's Patreon.com/Catherine Yronwode. And people who are my Patreon subscribers for $2 a week, they can get access to my writing ahead of time. So I'm working on these books. They get 10, 20 pages a week of my upcoming books for the $2. Nice bargain for them. If they want to support me, I can use the support.
Yeah, I'm a Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon is good. Good for us.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Well, then that will wrap up today's Hoodoo Monday.
All righty.
And I want to thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll see you next time.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Cat.